Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Contour Community Meeting. Today is March 16, 2021. Got a few things we want to talk about today. First up, we have, let me see if I can zoom in. We have Ame.
Hey, thanks. So I started looking at at adding ALS support to Contour or having a way to configure ALS via Contour. Added a design doc, it synced up with Nick as well offline. And I saw a bunch of comments trickle in from Steve and Sunjoy. Thanks for that. Um so I just wanted to go over the two approaches that we have to configure ALS for Envoy. One is using the extension service approach, and then the other one is to use Contour Bootstrap and have it write out a config file and then read it as part of Contour Serve. So I just wanted to chat a bit about which approach do we take and pros and cons about it.
So
Uh,
I mean, I had a little look over it, but I don't think it was clear that in both cases we were talking about using the extension service. The choices are between having the annotation on the extension service or the extension service referenced in a config file.
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think I think I screwed up when I kind of was writing it. I think it might not have been clear, but I'll go and fix some of that. I saw Steve and Sunjoy had some comments about that. Uh, so yeah, I mean, and I know it's like Sunjay commented that the annotation based approach on the extension service is something that we haven't followed previously in Contour. Although there are some annotations of the type project contour.io that I found in the docs. Um, so it is kind of like I kind of derived it from that idea. I just wanted to check what people feel about and what their thoughts are on either of those approaches.
I mean, I've talked to Ame about this already, so I'm interested to hear what Sanjay and Steve have to say.
So I guess to summarize, what's written there is that we would, to bootstrap the ALS, you make an extension service with an annotation on it that tells some consumer that this is for ALS. And then the two consumers are the Contour Bootstrap command, or if you're writing your own Bootstrap, then theoretically that tool or whatever. And the other consumer is the Contour Serve command, which is gonna, both of which would go through the list of extension services, find one that has the ALS annotation, and then the Bootstrap command will add it to the list of static clusters, because Envoy doesn't allow you to have a dynamic cluster for an access log service. And the Contour Serve command will find that extension service and then use that extension service reference to add the access log configuration for whatever HTTP routes that you have. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the annotation pattern, I guess I just called it out because it wasn't something that we already had, but it is kind of interesting because it doesn't make you have to pass command line flags or config file parameters in two places. It's just putting it in one place, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I guess I just yeah, that was kind of the reason that I called that out. I don't have a super strong opinion on it. I mean, there were some things that we were trying to reduce the amount of annotations that we're using, but that was more around like HTTP proxy and ingress resources and those sorts of things where it can get really like low level and unwieldy to do that, use annotations. But maybe this is a good place to use it. I don't know. Anyone else else have any opinions on that sort of thing?
I don't have anything specifically on the annotation, although Sanjay, your summary was really helpful because I only got to spend 30 seconds reading through this today. So thanks for that. I guess so what is the alternative to using the annotation on the extension service?
I would probably interpret it as you pass the contour bootstrap command a flag telling it the name of the extension service for ALS, and then in the contour regular config file, you would do the same.
Gotcha. So you have to tell both of those that which extension service represents the ALS because both of them need to do something with it.
Yep. Yeah.
Got it.
My idea on that was actually that that maybe we should look at changing the bootstrap so that you mount the same config map. It uses the same config file format as serve, and then that way there's only one place to configure those things. Most of the things that you put in the bootstrap config anyway, you could easily put in a config file. That would make it easier to configure the bootstrap. Yeah, so that sort of made me think, oh, maybe we should move the bootstrap away from just being command line flags only and just have it use the same config file as the other one. And then in this case, because you're coordinating the two things, you can just mount the same config file and call it done. There's only one place to set it. I don't know, that was why I sort of, I wanted to talk to all of you about it because I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what feels better there. I think the annotation idea feels to me like it's a little cubey, using an annotation for that sort of thing. But I think it feels to me like the cons there are just about what happens if you have lots of them, more than one. How do you pick the one that becomes the ALS?
Yeah, if you mistakenly. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying that as far as like the first draft of this goes, although you can put like multiple ALS syncs as cluster entries for Envoy, we can just look into supporting only one for now. But if there are multiple, then there has to be a way in the extension service annotation to say pick whatever ALS 01 over ALS 02, right? And I think that same problem might exist even with the config map idea as well, right? Like you need to choose which config map to, like where is that config coming from at the end, right?
Well, so that's why I was suggesting that you would mount the same. It would make it so that Contour Bootstrap takes the same config file as Contour Serve as the main contour, and then you mount the same config map into both places.
Yeah, but if you have multiple ALS syncs, then the same problem exists as in like which ALS you route your logs to, right? I think with both these approaches, the only common factor there is, or the point of contention there is to figure out how config is passed to config serve and config bootstrap, right? But what to do with the config is same no matter which approach you choose.
Yes, that is a fair thing to say. My gut feeling there is that we give people one and then wait to see if anybody asks for more than one. I suspect that giving people one would probably be enough.
Yeah, that's what I kind of called out in like the last open question. Although like the format and stuff is not correct, I just put it out so that we can have the discussion today. And if we choose the config map approach, if people have certs on the ALS server itself, do we need to kind of take care of like the client side cert mounting and all that SDS stuff, or that is a separate thing altogether?
Yeah, if they do want to secure they do want to have the gRPC be secured, then they'll need to generate a cert pair that from the same CA probably that Envoy and Contour already use for their current gRPC. That's a bit complicated. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Because then that cert has to be kind of referenced and then mounted as a secret, right?
And yeah, the way we currently do the search in, the CA key is not accessible to generate more certs from it. So that would mean that, yeah, right now, as things stand right now, when we add this in, you won't be able to do TLS for your logs.
Okay.
But yeah, that is definitely a thing to note in the design document for sure.
Yeah. And as the first draft, it is fine to do non-TLS and then we add TLS support. It's a fair thing to do, is what
Yeah.
you feel.
That would be my feeling. Sanjay, Steve?
Yeah, that seems okay. Just coming back to the annotation thing, I mean, I think, you know, it is nice to not have to configure the same thing in multiple places. So I think, you know, unless in the absence of a better option, like I think the annotation works. And we can always do something different later if we want to, or do something in addition to that if we want to.
Yeah. So the one downside there is that it will mean that the Envoy pods will need to have RBAC to read extension services. Probably fine, but it'll just be an extra RBAC that you got to add because the Contour Bootstrap runs in the context, the security context of the Envoy pod, not the Contour pod.
Good point. Okay.
Yeah. Right now, the Contour Bootstrap is entirely self-contained and doesn't talk to the API server at all. So, you know, either change that we need to make here does change how the Contour Bootstrap works in a like slightly fundamental way. You know, like it either goes from being completely self-contained and needing to talk to the API server, or being completely self-contained and needing to read a config file. So no matter which one you choose, we have to change that. But that's what we have to do to make it work.
Yeah, and is there a status field on the extension service? So let's say for some reason, if Bootstrap were to fail, then should we say like, oh, if the ALS cluster entry is not configured, then don't even write the access log entries for each HTTP connection manager filter?
I am not sure. I'm looking.
I didn't find a status field on the extension service, so that like, which we can use to reflect the state that, oh, there is an ALS configured, so now start configuring your access logs.
There is a conditions. There is conditions available on this extension service.
Okay, let me take a note of it. I think I was searching for status and not condition. That's why I didn't find it. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we could have the Bootstrap update the extension service if need be. Sorry,
yeah,
Sanjay.
would that be like Contour serve will then look at the status of the extension service and say, oh, it's in use, so I should, yes, do this. But if it's, is that kind of what you're aiming for there with that idea?
Yeah, because there's no point saying ship access logs here if the cluster is not configured, right? There's a dependency there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Although like the access log protocol is lossy, like, and it is best effort kind of a thing where if it can't ship access logs, like it doesn't affect the data path from a serving standpoint. So Envoy will still serve request. But I mean, why would
you just get no logs? You just get no logs? Is that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you won't get logs. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we should try and stop that from happening. It feels like. So I guess so. Here's what it sounds like to me. I mean, in the case that we do the label, so I think you got two options here. Like this design is choosing between two options: label on an extension service to choose what the ALS is, which has a bunch of sort of downstream ramifications of what we've got to do, or you configure the Bootstrap to look for a specific extension service. In either case, I'd say you're right. We need to be checking the extension service exists, probably even checking to see if the service exists, and updating a condition on there from the Bootstrap regardless. So that would mean that in either case, you're going to need read access to extension service and update status access, like RBAC for the extension service as well for the Envoy pod. And so that, so like the extra cost of then having to do the config file stuff seems to me to be less worth it personally. It feels like the annotation is probably the right way to go, given that. But that doesn't mean that, I'm interested in other people's thoughts there.
Yeah, what do we say if someone is for some reason against their Envoy pod having any more than 0 RBAC?
Then they can't use ALS. Like,
Yeah, or they have
Yeah,
to write
like-
their own bootstrap manually. So there is
But
a
I
way
mean, even-
somewhat around
but
it a little bit.
if they write their own bootstrap manually, that's fine. But then you still need a way to tell.
Yeah.
So if they want to do their own bootstrapping, they still need to. So I would say what we need to do is define that the way it works is the extension service has an annotation. The process that generates the bootstrap needs to look at all the extension services with that annotation, pick one if there's more than one, add a condition on it to say admitted true. Then Contour, when it starts up, or during it watches extension services anyway. When it sees an ALS, an extension service with the ALS annotation that has ALS admitted true, then it will use that one as it will add that one to config for the next round of listeners it sends. So the key parts, if you want to use your own bootstrap, are that you create an extension service and you update the status for it to say that it's admitted. However that happens is up to you. But those are the two key things for the feature to actually be used by Contour the controller. Does that sound reasonable? And in that case, the Envoy pod does need to have RBAC over the extension service. Over the extension service object, it'll need to have read of the spec and update of the status.
So didn't this problem exist for RLS as well? Or RLS, we didn't have to, because I mean, RLS, I think I would assume you still need to configure the actual RLS service and then reference that in the rate limit policy, right?
Yeah, the difference is it doesn't need to be a static cluster, so it's just configured as a CDS cluster as part of the main Contour process.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference, is that because this is a static cluster, you have to mess with the bootstrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does the bootstrap process need to run as an init container in the Envoy pod? Like, could it be run as a job like the searchgen process does that spits out a config map and then Envoy just mounts the config map?
It could, yes.
Also, I know it's a bigger change for sure, but I'm just
so some of it could, but the other thing that the bootstrap does is it writes out the JSON version of the protobuf files for the local SDS that allows us to do have Envoy automatically update certs when they change on disk, when the secrets that the search reference change. So that's the thing that Tero did some time ago. That allows you to change the gRPC certs that go between Envoy and Contour, and have Envoy pick them up immediately without having to restart. So bootstrap is required for that, because you can't. I mean, not required. You could change bootstrap to be a job to put those files in and have have a secret that or a config map or something like that stores those files, but you have to have those files as well as the other bits. It's not just the config map.
Got it.
But you're right. We could do it that way and have a job generate a config map and then have the config map have the config map be used. You're still going to end up doing. Yeah, I guess the thing that I would be worried about there is how do you make sure that the config map gets updated on an upgrade or something like that. That makes the version management a little harder on an upgrade, but not necessarily a reason not to.
Yeah,
I was just trying to think about. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and also at that point, you need to give the Envoy pod access to config map and not to extension service. And config map is can be broader in the sense other services can use config map. So it's like a broader RBAC you probably will have to open for allowing CRUD to a config map, right? I mean, yeah.
That's a good point. Yep. So, a good point, Steve. So probably worth spending a little bit more time thinking about, but I don't think it's worth messing with it in this context personally.
Yeah, probably not.
Cool.
Okay, so it sounds like your to-do list from what I can hear is update the design doc with the details about how it needs to be, as Steve Chris commented before, the ALS has to be a static cluster is a big limiter on this design. If we do the choices are annotation on an extension service versus referencing the extension service in config items, and then if you choose that, your options are supplied in two places, the config file and the command line flag, or move Bootstrap to using the same config file as Contour, which again would actually involve access to config maps for the Envoy pod. Well, it involve mounting a config map, different than having the config Envoy pod be able to read arbitrary config maps. And then so that's the decision between just doing it with an annotation and having everything look at the extension service, or doing it with by config references. And regardless of which we choose, the flow for the extension service should be that whatever extension service gets picked has a ALS admitted condition added to it, with a status of true for whichever one gets picked, and a status of false for whichever ones don't get picked. And if it's not admitted because the service isn't ready or something like that, those are reasons on that condition. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
As well. Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll update the PR and I'll fix some of the comments that you guys give. Thank you.
Sorry, that took a bit longer than I thought, but
no, this is
discussion, I think.
great. This is great. Great discussion. Thank you so much, Ami. Okay, so we got two more things that I want to talk about. The first one, we're moving to Hugo. So I put up a PR up today. It has a ton of merge conflicts, obviously. So I'm gonna spend some quality time with the website here and make sure that we can get through those. But the PR is up, so you can see the preview, so you can see what it looks like at least, and then I'll figure out how to deal with all those merge conflicts later on. So that's going to be super fun on my side. Love it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, just briefly here, I know we only have a few minutes, but one of the things that we want to talk about during these calls is, of course, what we're doing towards the roadmap. So we talked about the roadmap extensively in the March, what was it? Yeah, the March 2nd meeting. But I just wanted to do a quick status check here. We've got two items here for March. We got implement Kubernetes Ingress v1 specification and wildcard host name matching. Just wondering where we are at with those.
Yeah, these are both being worked on right now. I don't think we've completed either of them, but rate limiting should be done.
Yes, sorry, I was going to do a PR to move that down to done, and I have not. I'm sorry, I'll do that today.
Oh, no worries. Awesome. And we're working on these two. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Nick, I don't think we needed the roadmap to be at the monthly granularity. Like, okay. I mean, it's more work for us to have to keep maintaining it, right? I think for the roadmap, it's just maybe call it out, like for 2021, first half or second half.
Yeah.
I think would be good.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll bump those to, first half 2021.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that works.
Yeah, just an update on the Ingress v1 stuff. There's a lot of edge cases. It feels like a little bit of a black hole, but there's a lot of things. I guess it's not all captured in there. It's more captured in the label area Ingress. But I opened up a bunch of issues for edge cases that are outstanding. So that's still gone.
Sounds good. Any anything specific on the wildcard hostname matching?
I think Envoy 1.18 will be required to support some of that. So that should be coming out at the end of the month. And had a PR merged recently to do some kind of internal refactoring for stripping host name, like the port from the host names and stuff. So that should be following on a little bit quicker than before. So hopefully that'll be get done soonish.
Cool. Sounds good. Any questions, comments on it, on any of those two topics here? All right, awesome. Then I think we're done for today. I will. Who wants to be my buddy if I run into way too many merge problems on the website?
I would say me, but I'm not in your time zone, so it's probably not a good choice.
I can probably help you out, Jonas.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I'll bug you throughout the week here. Thank you.
Sounds good.
So one thing I did want to quickly ask you, Jonas, was just with Hugo, are we changing how we do the version? Does it work with how differently with how you do the version config, like the versioned bits of?
You mean the docs and stuff?
Yeah, of the docs. You know, like we've got some of the docs at the moment are versioned and some of them aren't. How does that work with Hugo? We did that with Netlify with having like a different directory for each one and stuff.
Yeah. So the way we do things now, when you look at the out there, you look at the site, you look at the docs, we have different versions, right? So that's still the same.
Right. Okay.
In Hugo, nothing changes there. So it's not going to change the way we do releases and docs for releases.
Okay, cool.
That's still there. One thing that I want to do though, when we look at the pull request here and we look at the preview, just show you here, and yeah, you definitely squash these things. Let me see. I can't actually see that there. Okay, great. Let me show you what I want to do though. So if we head over to our current docs, I don't want this long list.
Yep.
Doesn't make sense.
Yep.
I think it would be fine if we kept like the last 5 or something like that. So just update the website PR with that as well, so we can.
I think it gives the impression that they're all supported, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not the case.
Yeah, we're like, we don't want you to use version 1.0.
Yeah, indeed. I completely agree. Yep.
So I think that I know we only support the latest one. Oh, thank you, Sanjay. Yeah. So here's the deploy preview. So the docs look like this right now. We got a little report issues and edit thing here over to the right. It's much wider as well. We might want to look different colors here later, but this is just let's get it in and then we can fine tune later. But yeah, definitely shorten this list here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make sure it's actually listed in the right order as well, and not starting with the lowest number. I'd rather the
yes.
So we'll get that done. Cool. Yeah, this is a long time coming. Now I just need to fix all the merge faults.
Yeah. It looks great.
Anytime. Right.
Love that floating page outline on the right. Gotta say.
Oh yeah.
So useful.
Very nice. Very nice.
Nice.
Very nice. Because we do have a few pages that are quite long.
Yeah. I think it was the
API reference is particularly bad.
But yeah, the API. This one actually doesn't
use headings properly. Yeah.
Yep. So once we update that, we'll have a nice little outline here too.
That'll be good.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to give a heads up that I joined. Sorry for coming late.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey.
Do you have any updates you want to share before we close out?
I would say, well, let me share something really quick. Give me 1 second. This started off in the Slack channel last night, and again, an effort to try and really dig into gateway status conditions. I thought it would make sense to list the condition types and reasons and how they would be implemented by the operator.
I think my hope with that as well was that we can list, because yeah, Steve had sort of suggested that a contour controller should own. Yeah, we've kind of got a toss up at the moment between two approaches where the operator reconciles the gateway and where the contour controller reconciles the gateway. I'm leaning towards having the operator reconcile the gateway, but I wanted to understand how it would look to have the controller reconcile the gateway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I was hoping for with this exercise. And so you'll see there for each of the for each gateway and listener condition type, I put operator implementation with my thoughts on how the operator would implement this particular condition. Some of those conditions and reasons and so forth are implemented in that PR 250 that's referenced by this document. But yeah, I just want to share this because I think from an operator implementation standpoint, I touched on all of these. And so, if we're going to go through the exercise, the next bit would be for each of these. It looks like, Steve, you added contour implementation. I didn't look. Let's see, contour implementation, operator. Yeah, so it looks like we've, Steve, you listed out the implementation from the contour perspective on most, and probably since you added those, that's when I added the last listener condition types. So yeah, I just want to share this, and if everyone could kind of take a look, and then if Steve or others could add to the contour implementation. Maybe tomorrow, if possible, we can kind of review, do the pros and cons, discuss it in more detail, and hopefully all be on the same page with what direction we go in.
Yep, agreed.
The two different. Oh, sorry.
Do you want me to add this to the meeting doc?
Yeah, sure. Why not? And then I think even more importantly, I'll go ahead and add it to tomorrow's agenda for the maintainers meeting.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most urgent things that we need to sort out in terms of the gateway support, because we can't go any further on status work until we get this model nailed down. And we need to know pretty soon if we're going to, if it's going to be the operator or contour that reconciles this stuff.
Yeah, and to that point, I've got a couple PRs on the operator related to validation that are kind of on hold due to this, and then this PR 250 that's referenced here is on hold. And I think what is it, the 31st? We're wanting to cut the next release, and currently, our alpha support. Yeah, the status is basically non-existent right now. So that PR 250, which, either way, I want to do some updates after going through this exercise, because it was actually really good for me from the operator's perspective to go through this exercise. So either way, I want to update PR 250 if we decide to proceed. But I would say that, most of that PR is still good to go. And long story short is, if we move forward with the operator implementing gateway, then I definitely want to get a PR in before we cut the next release. So
because as I mentioned, the current status is not very good.
I agree with that.
I got to step away 1 second.
Yeah, I
I
just
think we're
want to
due
do a
to
time
finish up
check.
anyway. Yeah, I think we're way over time.
We're over time. Thank you everyone for joining in today. I know the maintainer is going to have a maintainer call tomorrow. Talk more about this. So yeah, we'll have more updates on this next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jess.
Have a good one, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all
See you
next
later.
week.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.